The creature jumped off the fire and jumped about the room like a kitten, running up the walls and over the ceiling, till the old man was in agony for fear that his pretty room in the very heart of Japan, high up the mountains, there lived an old man in his little house. He was very proud of it and never tired of admiring the whiteness of his straw mats and the pretty prepared walls, which in warm weather always slide back, allowing the smell of trees and flowers in without hindrance. One day, the old man was standing looking at the mountain opposite when he heard a kind of rumbling noise in the room behind him. He turned around, and in the corner he saw a rusty old iron kettle, which clearly had not seen the light of day nor the warmth of the sun for many years. How the kettle got there, the old man did not know, but he took it up and looked at it carefully, and when he found that it was quite whole, he cleaned the dust off it and carried it into his kitchen for onward use. That was a piece of luck, he said, smiling to himself. A good kettle costs money these days, and it makes sense to have an alternative handy. Mine is getting worn out and already leaking by its side. Then he took the other kettle off the fire, filled the new one with water, and put it in its place. As the water in the newly found kettle was getting warm, a most strange thing happened, and the man who was standing by thought he must be dreaming. First, the handle of the kettle gradually changed its shape and became a head, and the steam grew into a tail, while out of the body sprang four paws, and in a few minutes the man found himself watching not a kettle, but a small, bright-eyed, fluffy dog. The creature jumped off the fire and jumped about the room like a kitten, running up the walls and over the ceiling, till the old man was in agony for fear that his pretty room would be compromised. He cried to a neighbor for help, and between them, they managed to catch the mischievous fluffy dog and shut him up safely in a wooden chest. Then, quite exhausted, they sat down on the mat and discussed amongst themselves what they should do with the troublesome beast. At length, they decided to sell it and asked a child who was passing by to fetch a certain tradesman called Arata. When Arata arrived, the old man told him that he had something which he wished to get rid of, and lifted the lid off the wooden chest where he had shut up the small, fluffy, mischievous dog. But to his surprise, no dog was there, nothing but the kettle he had found in the corner earlier. It was certainly very old, but the man remembered what had taken place on the fire and did not want to keep the kettle anymore. So after a little bargaining about the price, Arata went away carrying the kettle with him. Arata had not gone very far before he felt that the kettle was getting heavier and heavier, and by the time he reached his house, he was so tired that he was thankful to put it down in the corner of his room and then forgot all about it. In the middle of the night, however, he was awakened by a loud noise in the corner where the kettle stood. He raised himself up in bed to see what it was, but nothing was there except the kettle, which seemed quiet enough. He thought that he must have been dreaming and fell asleep again, only to be roused a second time by the same disturbance. He jumped up and went to the corner, and by the light of the lamp that he always kept burning, he saw that the kettle had become a small, fluffy, mischievous-looking dog, which was running round after its tail. After it grew weary of that, it ran on the balcony, where it performed several somersaults from pure gladness of heart. Arata was very troubled as to what to do with the animal, and it was only towards morning that he managed to get any sleep. But when he opened his eyes again, there was no small dog, only the old kettle he had left there the night before. As soon as he had tidied his house, Arata set off to tell his story to a friend next door. The man listened quietly and did not appear so surprised as Arata had expected, for he recollected having heard in his youth something about a wonder-working kettle. Go and travel with it and show it off, his friend said, and you will become a rich man. But be careful first to ask the dog's leave and also to perform some magic ceremonies to prevent it from running away at the sight of the people. Arata thanked his friend for the counsel, which he followed exactly. The small fluffy dog's consent was obtained. A booth was built, and a notice was hung up outside it, inviting the people to come and witness the most wonderful transformation that was ever seen. They came in droves, and the kettle was passed from hand to hand, and they were allowed to examine it all over and even to look inside. Then Arata took it back and setting it on the platform, commanded it to become a small fluffy dog. In an instant, the handle began to change into a head and the stem into a tail, while the four paws appeared at the sides. Dance, ordered Arata, and the dog did its steps and moved first on one side and then on the other till the people could not stand still any longer and began to dance too. Gracefully, it leads its fans to dance and glided without a pause into the shadow dance and the umbrella dance, and it seemed as if it might go on dancing forever if Arata had not declared it had danced enough and that the booth must be closed for the day. And day after day, the booth was so full that it was hardly possible to enter it. And what the neighbor foretold had come to pass. And Arata was a rich man, yet he did not feel happy. He was an honest man, and he thought that he owed some of his wealth to the man from whom he had bought the kettle. So, one morning he put 100 gold pieces into it and hung the kettle once more on his arm. He returned to the seller of it. I have no right to keep it any longer, he added, when he had ended his tale. So I have brought it back to you, and inside you will find 100 gold pieces as the price of its hire. The man thanked Arata and said that few people would have been as honest as he was. And the kettle brought them both luck, and everything went well with them till they died at a ripe old age, gathering the respect of all, young and old.